Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What do you do when no one else is watching? What do you do that makes you happy for no reason at all? What are you obsessed with? I'm Leslie Arfin, and I'm a writer, but I'm also a dancer, a painter, a vapor, a dollhouse enthusiast, and basically just an overall hobbyist. My podcast, Filling the Void, is all about what other people are fanatically into. We talk about hobbies, even if you don't have one.
Listen to Filling the Void on Tuesdays on the Arios Network and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hi, it's Dave here. This is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
This is the Cinemile, the podcast where we walk home from the movies. And we're going to do things a little differently today because you might have noticed that this episode is not a movie. It's not about a movie. Yeah. We're not going to see a movie.
Because there's absolutely no movies in the cinema at the moment.
No, it's a drought. It's a cinematic drought. The biggest movie at the cinemas at the moment is a film by Michael Flatley, which we admittedly are very excited to see, and we are going to see, and that is going to be our 250th episode.
Yeah, we had to keep it for that episode.
So that is coming, but there's nothing really else on. And then we were like scrolling through the Netflixes and the Primes and looking for a movie to watch, and we were just like, why don't we just talk about what everyone else is talking about, which is effectively more cinematic than all of those movies combined anyway.
Exactly.
So here we are, The Lord of the Rings, one of the franchises that for me redefined cinematic spectacle. Mm-hmm. This was a franchise that I was 16 years old when this came out, 16, 17, and those 3 years where we got one of them every Christmas was just magic. Such a treat. Yeah, absolute magic.
And normally we do our TV reviews over on our Patreon, and we are going to review the whole of this series over on our Patreon, but the first two episodes, because they got dropped in a double back to back, we're going to talk about both the first two episodes right now, first without spoilers, and then we'll go into spoilers. So we'll give you some warning before we hit spoilers. But yeah, it's interesting you had that experience. You watch them every year in the cinema. I never saw them in the cinema, and for whatever reason they passed me by and I wasn't particularly interested in them. And then years later you showed me them and I really liked them. And then we went to New Zealand and every hostel we stayed in was playing them in the background. And then we
visited the set. We
Hobbiton. We went to Weta Studios, which was amazing.
And they're doing the effects for this show.
Oh, great! Love to hear it. So yeah, I like the movies, enjoyed all those things, but I was never like as into them as you were. And then, personally, for me, I read the Hobbit book, but I was never bothered watching the Hobbit movies. I just couldn't. I read the book and I thought, you know what? I can't see being across three movies.
You watched the first one with me at an outdoor cinema
Did I?
in Sydney. Yeah, you don't even remember.
Oh, well, I certainly didn't watch the next two.
No, you didn't. I watched them with other people. And enough said about those movies, Dave. They weren't particularly great.
But Peter Jackson is amazing. And when you go and visit Weta Studios, it's unreal. Like, it's so cool. And when we saw Hobbiton, that was so cool. So, like, I definitely have a love for this franchise. I'm just not particularly bothered about it. And, like, when Amazon said they were making this and they're going to spend, over the course of the few series, they're making $1 billion. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
They're spending $1 billion.
Yeah, but they're spending $1 billion.
They're not. Who knows what they're making? Because it's so hard to attribute.
But including like
weird streaming,
paying $250 million or something for the streaming rights. But now that it's here, I'm excited to watch it.
And how weird that it is on TV at the same time as a high-profile Game of Thrones show.
Yeah, so weird. Which also, odd, right? By the way, House of the Dragon, we're doing weekly reviews on that over on our Patreon as well. But anyway, let's go watch it because I'm fascinated.
All right, yeah, let's stick it on right now.
Yeah, and
we'll see you here very shortly.
Bye.
There was a time when the world was so young. There had not yet been a sunrise. But even then, there was light.
Call to me, lands far away.
Elves have forests to protect. Dwarfs their minds. mend their fields of grain. But we Harfoots have each other.
For I must now wander this wandering day.
We're safe.
You have fought long enough, Galadriel. Put up your sword.
The enemy is still out there. The question now is where?
It is over.
You have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen what I have seen.
Right, we're back. So we've watched a double bill, which I will say was the length of a movie. So guys, like, no, don't give us any shit for this, right? We're treating it as a movie.
And I'm sorry we're not out walking, but it's currently torrentially raining.
Yeah, it's
in Cork.
really there's storms here in Cork.
There's storms afoot.
We cannot go outside. Oh my god, I really enjoyed those 2 episodes of TV. They were a spectacle. I think this show looks incredible, right?
It's gorgeous, and I have 2 thoughts at the same time, which is The Hobbit. I was like, it's outrageous they're stringing this book out into 3 movies. I'd never want to go see it in the cinema. And then B, I'm watching this going, fuck, I'd love to see this in the cinema. But this has loads of plot though, so it doesn't suffer from the same thing that The Hobbit did. So I think it looks amazing, and I think as much as I was like kind of vaguely interested in watching it, now that I've seen 2 episodes, I'm definitely invested. I love that the series is only 8 episodes long. Like, I'll definitely watch 8 episodes of this. Like, I think if it was going to be any longer than that, I might struggle. But by the end of the first episode, it suddenly got really interesting, and I'm totally with it now.
It's a little slow to get going. So again, no spoilers yet. We'll give you a spoiler warning. It is a little slow to get going, but I liked that. I think it eases you into the characters and the world again. And I think towards the end of the first episode, it really ramps up the sort of the momentum. And by the second episode, I felt like it was like starting to sprint.
It just looks
like,
so expensive, though, doesn't it? Like,
it
we
looks
kept being
beautiful.
like, how much money have they spent on this
like,
scene?
we don't have a 4K TV. We're on a 6 or 7 year old sort of 1080p job.
Yeah. And it looked incredible.
It's fucking popped.
I was like, I didn't know our TV could look that good.
Yeah, it looked, the
It made our
clarity
TV
and the
look
detail
better.
in every frame was like, there's a scene which is in the trailer of a battle right between a load of elves and orcs, and this huge spectacle battle in the rain, and it was just like, oh my god, that is like fantastic looking.
Yeah.
But here's a few other things I'll say in this show's favor. One, I think it feels really welcome right now, right? It's been 20 years since the we've seen anything from the Lord of the Rings universe. And a lot of...
The Hobbit was out like 10 years ago.
Okay, it's been 20 years since the trilogy that I really care about.
You've forgotten about The Hobbit and you watched them all.
I gotta say, okay, fine. Quick note on The Hobbit. I think there's a lot to like in those movies. Peter Jackson is a visual storyteller. There's a lot of fun. Martin Freeman is fantastic as Bilbo Baggins. And I personally still have shivers when they're in his hobbit hole and the dwarves all sing that song. So there's some fantastic stuff in those movies. But as Kathy said, yeah, it's too drawn out. There's not enough material, and it all feels superfluous. And that's enough. That's all I will say about The Hobbit. It doesn't have the drive and momentum and sort of, and which this show has. In this show feels grand
this
and
is full
epic,
of story,
just like the Lord of the Rings.
This
but it feels
actually
like
is
there's
more
threat, a huge existential, massive evil.
But isn't
threat.
this more like, so because we're watching House of the Dragon 2 and we're doing weekly reviews, as I said, over on Patreon on it, and we're enjoying it so far, but we've a few quibbles with it. But this actually feels more in the Game of Thrones vein of storytelling, in that this is like multiple characters from different parts of the world, loads of different plots going on, and then one very big bad, which is kind of driving like the evil force, as you say. So there's loads of really interesting stuff going on here, and I'm really enjoying being back in a show that's really complex like this, and like being in completely new sets. And also I love how they visualize it, whereby we can see it across a map. Like, I find that really helpful when I'm watching a show like a fantasy show, how they've illustrated it.
It's really well done.
Yeah, like I
say.
can really follow it, and I often struggle with when you're thrown into a world, because I never read the Lord of the Rings books, I only read The Hobbit. and I just don't really remember the movies, if I'm being honest. But I found myself being able to completely follow this, which I was concerned about given my lack of memory on the movies.
It's beautiful. The maps have texture, and the way they dissolve into the scenery is fantastic.
It feels like whoever made it like really loves Lord of the Rings.
Well, these first 2 episodes were directed by J.A. Bayona, who is a brilliant Spanish filmmaker who I have been following his career like closely, and we've seen loads of films by him. So we loved The Orphanage, his debut.
Oh, I love that
feature
movie.
film is a brilliant
I didn't know
horror
he made
movie.
this.
Yeah, if anyone has seen this. And when we get to spoilers, we'll talk about, I think in episode 2,
There's some horror,
he shows off his horror cred a lot. So he knows horror. He also made a great film with Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts called The Impossible, which was based on the tsunami.
I didn't realise he made that.
The
Because there's a lot
Thailand
of
tsunami.
water scenes in
Yeah,
this.
exactly. I was going to say there's a load of water stuff, and they
Brilliant.
look incredible.
Yeah,
and
they look
they're
amazing.
so realistic. So he's a man who's clearly has the experience in that.
And
And
like notable, we were like, I'm like, this is some of the best water work I've ever seen.
they're brilliant. Wetter work as well. It's very wetter. And he also made the second in the Jurassic World movies, the Fallen Kingdom one, which I think was the best one. It wasn't great, but I think its failings are in its script.
There
and
was good horror
storytelling.
in that as well, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
interesting.
now back to just to finish my point about what's changed in the last 20 years and why this show feels refreshing. The Lord of the Rings universe is very it's high fantasy, yes, sweet. It's very sincere. It's all like you're grounded with these little hobbits as your heroes, and they just love like potatoes, and they're very simple creatures, and the people who are good, and the people who are evil, and there's very little grey in the middle. There's a few like Boromir maybe. Then in the last 20 years, TV has transformed, right? So these movies came out at a time when storytelling was kind of simple. You know, we had like Star Wars, good and evil, and all this kind of stuff. Nuance was in the indie scene. So, but now TV in the last 20 years has become way more interesting, way more nuanced, and a show like Game of Thrones is an example of that over the last 10 years, or The Wire, you know,
probably starting back with The Sopranos, which was about 20 years ago. You had a very complex
who's
central
kind
character.
of, you know, is tender and goes to therapy.
Yeah.
So it's like way more interesting and complex characters. Game of Thrones, there is no, you know, it's filled with people who are. There's very few purely noble characters.
Jamie Lannister, loved him by the end.
Yeah,
hated him at the
kind
beginning.
of love and hate all of them.
Yeah.
They're all kind of good, a lot like real life. And it's the same with the House of the Dragon, and it's a lot of just like political backstabbing and stuff, and that. So I found it kind of, and all that stuff is brilliant, by the way, and I love it, and it's real meaty and complex and nuanced. But you know what? This just felt like a breath of fresh air to be like, you know, it's kind of just simple storytelling. The bad guys are bad and they have fire, and they're dirty, and the good guys are like. Live in sunshine lands and like live with nature, and so it's all very clear and easy to understand. And I also think it's the kind of sort of basic epic storytelling that is kind of suitable for kids and families. And I'll say, look, this show is a bit intense.
Yeah, we were thinking at the beginning it might have been like felt like a comfortable 12s, but now I'd say you'd want your kid to be over 12 really watching.
I think 12 would be the floor of this. But this is exciting stuff for a 12, 13, 14-year-old, I think. And The Lord of the Rings had some super scary stuff in it as well. Yeah. And I think this universe is perfectly geared for family. Like I can imagine sitting around with a family with kids who are teenagers, and just like everyone can get into this.
Yeah, I would think so.
Whereas
too.
the Game of Thrones, you can't sit and watch that. Yeah, was your kids nasty.
And I totally know what you mean. I felt that as well. And like at the beginning, while I was enjoying it visually and like thinking it looked cool, and I agree with all that, and I loved seeing the hobbits back again, even though they're not called hobbits. And
they're a race who are a precursor.
What are they called?
I have to look at the Harfoots.
Harfoots.
Yeah.
But I loved seeing all the stuff with, you know, the elves and everything. Like, I just really love all that. But I did have a thought, like, towards the end of the first episode, I thought, oh God, is this show going to be boring though? And then it wasn't. Then it got really good at the end. So there's loads of plot in it. There's loads going on. And I really enjoy that we're not really looking at famous actors. Also, I didn't recognise Lenny Henry, so Dave had to tell me he was in it. Because he's like a Harfoot and has all the like, you know, gear or whatever, so I didn't even recognise him. One or two of the actors you're like,
come to the Irish accents in a minute.
One or two of the actors you're like, God, we know them, but we kind of had to look them up until we realised that the main elf character is from Saint Maud, which is a film we absolutely loved, and I know loads of our listeners loved as well.
Yeah, Morfydd Clark, I think she's a Welsh actress. She is amazing.
She's like the star of the show
in Saint Maud, and she is because we were, before we pegged who she was, we were both saying, oh my God, she's an amazing actress.
She's like the main elf actress, for anyone to know. And like,
she plays Galadriel, who was Kate Blanchett's character in the Lord of the Rings.
That was the other bit at the start as well. There was just in the first scene or two, and you were like, oh, that's Kate Blanchett's character and that's Hugo Weaving's character. I just thought, oh, this is a bit boring if it's all the characters in the movie, but it's not at all, actually. It's
that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So for context, because we're still in the pre-spoiler section, I think this, everyone should watch this. I would highly recommend it. I think it's big spectacle, fun storytelling. It's exciting, but it is it predates the Lord of the Rings movies in the timeline by a few thousand years, I think. And by the way, we are not experts of this text
absolutely
or the
not
source material.
But you have read all
go
of them.
elsewhere for that.
You've read all the books and seen all the films multiple times, so like compared to me, you're an expert.
Sure, yeah.
But not compared to like actual.
But I had to do a lot of googling
to remind
after
yourself.
we turned up to like these place names and what's that, and you know, I'm not obsessed with this Tolkien.
But you're so like, you were so excited for it to be back. So let's go to spoiler street now. So anyone who hasn't seen it, we both recommend you watch it, A, and then B, subscribe to our Patreon to listen to weekly reviews of it.
If
full of
you're
spoilers.
We are going our spoiler journey with us. So it's patreon.com/ the Cinemile, £2 or £3 a month. We're still in sterling for some reason.
Yeah, we live in Ireland.
You're going to be getting weekly. What are they getting? This is what you can win.
It's actually the most we've ever done on our Patreon. We're doing weekly
House of the Dragon, House of the Dragon, weekly Rings of Power. We just did what we've been watching on She-Hulk and Only Murders in the Building and all this other great TV. We're about to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Guys, there's never been a better time, except for the cost of living crisis and the fact that nobody has any money.
Yeah.
But if you do have money, there's never been a better time to spend a little bit of it on the Cinemile High Club.
Yeah.
At patreon.com / the Cinemile.
Plugs over. Spoiler street. This is your spoiler warning.
Spoiler sofa today, because we're sat on the sofa.
Yeah. Usually we're walking for these.
So do you want to, will we just talk about the sort of, go kind of character by character, the main characters?
Yeah, I think that'd be useful for me that you have those notes, because I'll struggle to remember, just because it's the first time we've watched it now, I'd struggle to remember all their names otherwise.
Yeah, so let's break it into sections, because like you say, there is a lot more. Like the Lord of the Rings, we were really just following those 4 hobbits, and then other characters came in a bit by bit, but they were the sort of central thread. Whereas here, I would argue, I think clearly the central through character is Galadriel.
Yeah, 100%.
She's the first character we meet. And she feels like the protagonist.
Yeah, 100%.
So we kind of get her, we get her in this beginning in this sort of elf paradise. Guys, I don't know what it's called. I didn't look that one up. It begins with V, but it's where they all go.
It looks amazing.
It's a beautiful place.
But even in elf paradise, kids are little shits.
Yeah, no,
and when you make a lovely boat that turns into a magical swan, some mean little voices will throw rocks
They're
at
like,
it.
fuck that. I'm taking it down. What I liked about all this, I mean, look, from the off, it set the tone. It felt consistent with what I would expect of Lord of the Rings. Just this like almost really sincere dialogue and characters talking very earnestly to each other. Like in any other show, it's almost would be kind of. It has an ounce of cynicism in it, does it?
It's really nice
like
to see,
her brother telling her, you know, this lovely like metaphorical life lesson, which is clearly going to be replayed later in a moment of truth.
I also feel like that brother is going to come back at some point, because like he came and went very quickly, and though I can't remember who he is, I definitely recognise the actor, and I was like, I feel like
he's dead.
Yeah, but I wonder, is there going to be some flashbacks or something, or is she going to have some visions of him when he died or something? I don't know. He just seemed like a really important character. Now I know he's important.
Oh well, he's got the mark on him. Do you remember?
Yeah, like
so maybe that'll
he's
bring
going to
him
be a
back.
zombie or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. I know he's important also because it's like her primary motivation is avenging her brother's death. But I also felt like we might see him again. I don't know.
So I thought that her whole struggle is really interesting to me. This whole idea of this obsession with revenge.
And also, how long are we? Like, this is where I got confused. When she's off in the mountains hunting, right, for Sauron with her other elves, Have they been there for eons? Like, I've got very confused with like the timeline of her life.
And
then you tell me she's in 3,000 years later still in the Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know. Right? Elves live for thousands of years. Honestly, I was a little bit confused at the bit at the beginning of the first episode where she just dumped a load of exposition on us. She was like, and then Morgoth came, and then all the leaves fell from the tree, and I'm like, okay, I'm with you. And then we sailed across the ships to Middle Earth, and I'm like, okay, now you're in Middle Earth. And then the war happened,
yeah, it was,
and it lasted for 1,000 years, and I'm like, and then my brother, and then
basically the war came and her brother died. Okay, but how old is she?
Yeah, I don't know.
But I get the impression that she was in those mountains looking for Sauron for like a good 500 years, give or take. I could hear
you say that all night.
A good 500 years. What do you reckon?
I mean, I don't know.
They're like, they got sent back to the motherland for this journey. I feel like they did a lot. Like the king sent them to a place that even he's not allowed to go as a reward.
Yeah. I don't know, love. I don't know how long. I will tell you that a lot of people are annoyed online. I've read this because the scholars of Tolkien have said that this is not matching the timeline.
Okay,
but of
right.
course they have compressed a lot of it, and I think they've admitted it because, guys, it's a fucking TV show.
But also, if she's live for thousands of years, like, I'm sorry, but I don't want to watch that timeline.
Yeah,
that's really boring.
I don't need it laid out.
Yeah.
So anyway, she is obsessed, goes to the mountains with a troop, and it's this struggle between when you need to stop. This evil has gone, and so you're kind of caught between. She's clearly right. And she's the only one who knows it.
Well, we only know it's right, though, because we know Sauron's the baddie in the next movie.
But then everyone else makes complete logical sense, and she does push it too far. So I thought it was...
I mean, it was particularly bad when there was they were on the top of a cliff, and it was an actual blizzard, and they're like, can we camp for the night? And she's like, no.
She's like, no.
You're the worst team leader ever. Of course there's going to be a mutiny.
But then they all seem to survive. They defeat a snow troll in a little fun scene.
That was straight out of Frozen. That snow monster, yeah.
And then they meet Elrond and her friend. I think they had a nice little rapport. And they meet the High King, who seems a bit sort of uppity.
Who did you say he looked exactly like? A young Liam Neeson?
Yeah, he's like a young Liam Neeson with elf ears. And then she gets sent back, but she decides... she doesn't decide in the moment, when Elrond is like... She tells Elrond, no, I'm not going to go.
Well, she says I just want to go, and he don't want to go, and he basically says
kind of talks her into it.
No, he basically says you have to go.
Yeah, basically. But which I wish... I'm sure she's wishing that she hadn't made that decision and then changed her mind at the worst possible last minute where she has to jump off a boat.
Yeah, that looked bad.
In the middle of fucking nowhere.
At that point, I would have gone to the Promised Land.
And then come back later, but I guess you can't.
No, I don't think you can come back, though.
That's the deal, is it? And then that's pretty much her in episode 1. And
but also moving into the next episode where she basically falls in love with a Hallmark movie character, this perfect man who's hot, muscular, on a log, rescues her.
Yeah, he's like from a John Sparks.
And there's
novel,
a worm. You mean Nicholas Sparks? There's a worm chasing them underwater, so that's quite cool.
That whole thing,
that was the coolest water
was
sequence.
Fantastic. And some of there's so many memorable moments in these two episodes. But the one where she's swimming towards the camera and towards us,
class.
and we're tracking backwards, and the camera's going up and down and in and out of the water, and you're just getting glimpses of the sea creature. I mean,
I was literally watching that going like. Every time
incredible.
She moved, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million.
Yeah, but the money's there.
But now that you told me he made that Thailand tsunami movie, that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, because that was all
That's
water.
someone who's like an expert in filming under those circumstances.
But he did some amazing stuff in that movie underwater as well, like really incredible stuff.
Anyway, so that's kind of where she's now. But then the very end was like a shadow fell over her, and someone in a big boat was watching her. So we don't know who that is, but we presume a baddie, because only baddies have shadows like that. Well, that's never a nice rescue mission.
And clearly, I mean, I'm quite enjoying the friendship between her and this sort of this
hot
kind
Hallmark
of cutthroat. Yeah, he's kind of an interesting character.
Also, it made no sense though, right? She was putting out her hand to rescue him, and he refused. But then when she fell, he immediately went and rescued her. So
well, I think he's what we're introduced to him as. He's like, he's one of these selfless sort of...
No, selfish. He's only in for himself.
Selfish. Yeah, like he said, he left them all to die because easier
Well,
target.
he was actually right though, because he just would have died as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's clearly his journey.
This is where I keep getting confused. Then though, I'm like, aside from being immortal, I don't know what an elf can do. Like, there seems to be no benefits to her of being an elf.
What do you mean?
I guess she can like survive in a snow blizzard.
I'm sorry, I'm sounding mildly frustrated because Kathy has asked me this question 1,000 times while we were watching this.
I just don't understand what other than being long lived, what the benefit of being an elf is.
What the benefit? What's the benefit of being?
No, I thought they were magic.
I don't think
I
so.
thought
No.
I thought I remembered Kate Blanchett being magic in the other movies.
I think she does some weird magic shit, yeah. But like, they're just a race of people. They all have different racial characteristics. They're not just like.
I'm just saying, I
vampires.
thought they were magic, and I'm confused as to why she's just swimming around in the ocean when she could just like magic herself.
She could die. Her brother died.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought by leaping from the boat when she did, she had some powers, and that's why she did
No,
it. But
and that's
just
what I was
really
saying
dumb.
to you. Like, what the fuck is she doing? Like, that's such a bad idea.
But I guess being immortal, you could live.
She had to swim back.
You could swim for a lot longer than us because, like, you wouldn't get pneumonia
Sure,
or whatever.
I'm sure she's very well. Well, she seemed very fit.
Yeah.
And then we had Elrond.
Who is Hugo Weaving?
Who is Hugo Weaving's character, and we're sort of introduced to him as this sort of advisor to the king or a poet, right? He was
like a speechwriter.
Speechwriter,
I love that we
yeah.
saw him writing that, and then we saw the king reading
It was
it.
nicely done.
But he's kind of like, I'd say, his political communication strategist, if I was to give him a term, because he seems to be advising on alliances with dwarves as well.
Yes, he seems to be very well connected,
Yeah.
as we see in what was, I think, his most interesting plot is when he goes to meet his friend Durin in Khazad-dûm to convince him to help his other elf guy build a big thing, which is obviously going to be the thing that leads to how they build the Rings of Power, I guess. Guys,
Yeah, that was cool.
Book readers, don't hate on me. I don't know any of this.
No, but that is what they're getting at.
This show is about the forging of those Rings
Yeah.
of Power. So that's what we're building.
And I enjoyed I really enjoyed and where the show's taking time with different characters. I really enjoyed that when he's like, oh, I know the dwarf prince, like, we're really good friends, and the prince is really annoyed with him. And I actually love the scene where the prince is like, okay, 20 years is nothing to you, but like, that's my whole life, and you've missed my marriage, you missed the birth of my kids. And I thought that was a brilliant scene, because it gave us insights into two characters immediately. One, which is the prince, which takes relationships really seriously, and he's very family orientated. And then one, which is an elf who has such a long lifespan that, like, in the blink of an eye, 20 years is nothing to him, and he can't really be a friend to a human because a human's lifespan is so meaningless to him.
Or a dwarf in this instance. Yeah.
Sorry, a dwarf's lifespan is so meaningless. And then he seems to have not pitched the dwarf his idea that they like go into production together, because then he appeared to be gone, and the dwarf prince was saying to his dad, the king, nah, he didn't want anything, he was just checking in. Or else the dwarf's hiding it from the king.
Oh yeah. Okay,
So
I'm a
that's
little
the bit I
confused
couldn't-
about that.
yeah, I couldn't quite figure that out.
Write in, listeners, and let us know.
But I loved the dwarf prince's like relationship with his wife as well. I thought that was so sweet.
It was all very
yeah,
sweet.
It was so wholesome.
I thought that whole wholesome.
Yeah.
There's so much wholesomeness in the Lord of the Rings between Gandalf and the Shire people, and this is and I got a real vibe of this. I really believed in their relationship. It felt very authentic.
Yeah.
It felt long lasting, and I mean, both the husband and wife and the friend. It felt like a very relatable sort of...
Yeah, and it didn't even feel like Elrond was there to manipulate the prince. He really did want to see him and spend time with him, as well as asking him to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it was just... But what I liked about it showed us that Elrond is clearly had made a social faux pas, hadn't realised it, and then worked to recover and apologise it. Like, he is clearly somewhat empathetic, you know, but in like careless perhaps.
Well, he's just an elf.
Careless
Like
with
as
his
we've just discussed, he's probably already been alive for 1,000 years. Like, it's like 20 minutes to him.
But it feels
20
like an
years.
interaction that could happen with two humans in a
Yeah,
modern society.
and I love how in touch with his emotions and how emotionally intelligent the dwarf prince was as well. Because he's kind of not what you'd expect from his exterior.
Yeah, exactly. And I found him incredibly charming.
If I could grow a beard, I would have my beard plaited like that as well.
It's
Such
awesome.
a good look.
Yeah,
You should do it.
So I just really loved all that stuff, and I'm loving all these disparate characters who are presumably going to come together at some point and form a sort of a fellowship. And I'm totally on board with that.
Dave's face just lit up when he said fellowship.
I like it. I really like all the characters they've
Yeah.
introduced to. I think, and I thought the cast, as you said earlier, and you're dead right. the fact that nobody is famous really helps this show. One, because it gives them more money to spend on how the show looks, clearly, or otherwise it'd be too expensive.
Though you kind of think, look, what's another $1 million here or there? Like, it's point on how much money they spend.
I guess, but it's also a bit distracting if it's like,
Yeah.
oh, Ryan Gosling is a hunk on a ship now. It's just like, you know what I mean? So there's two more other sort of main plots. We meet a elf soldier called Arondir.
And this is where we're like, finally, Lord of the Rings isn't just
It's
all
diverse,
white
yeah.
people, which is what it's always been.
Which is another huge thing that has changed in the last 20
Yeah,
years for the better.
representation.
Yeah, representation in cinema.
Like the fact that like now you think if Peter Jackson made that movie now, you'd be like, people would be saying, why is everyone white?
Well, it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't
As
happen.
a case in point on this
Yeah.
show.
So yeah, we're delighted
And
to see that.
unfortunately, there's a toxic reaction online.
Do you know what I just
Where they're
think,
like,
though?
but what's absurd
When
about all
people
that
say is there's a toxic reaction online, I want to pull you up on that. What it often is a tiny, tiny vocal minority.
Yeah,
and
and the media
everyone
blows it
around
up.
it blows it
Yeah,
up because
I
they
agree.
carry on and
Yeah.
say there's been a toxic reaction. So what I would say is just two things
Don't
that I
talk
do.
about it.
What I do when I see that shit on Twitter, I report them for racist abuse. Usually Twitter upholds my reports, by the way, and they get knocked off. So be wary of me on Twitter. I love to report people. And B, just fucking ignore them and don't talk about them.
Well,
Because I guarantee you it's a tiny
to back
percentage
up your
of people.
point, I have not seen any backlash to it.
All you've seen
I've
is-
seen are the headlines about the backlash.
Yeah, it's just
So
stupid.
I'm
It's
like,
just stupid and toxic.
Yeah, it is.
So let's not even talk about it.
All right, I
but
agree,
no,
I
we were
agree.
delighted. We're like, oh my god! Like even like the dwarf prince or whatever. Like yeah, like this is great. Like his wife isn't white. Oh look, this soldier, he's not white. Oh look, Lenny Henry, though I didn't recognize who he was. Like loads of the
Loads of it is
limbs
totally
or whatever they're
incidental.
called. Yeah, it's just all
However,
completely
it perhaps
incidental.
is a bit unfortunate that the Arondir, the elf, our first introduction to him is experiencing bigotry from the humans because
But that's because he's an elf, though.
No, I know, it's just
And also because he's an elf overlord. In fairness, like slightly holding them captive.
And I thought that was interesting. I spoke earlier about everything is black or white, good or evil. I think this is an area where it's in between, where we get some sort of interpersonal relationships between species, and that it's
It's
kind of
interesting, but it's also back to the point of elves living too long. So the elves are holding the humans of that valley to task for something that like their forefathers did.
yes.
So the elves
exactly.
are like, they're evil,
Yeah.
and those people are like, who the fuck are you? We've been under your thumb for what seems like centuries.
And I thought that was really interesting. They both had really valid points.
Well, but the elf needs to cop on because his point's hundreds of years old.
Well, it was that you're talking about your man's commander, Arondir's commander.
Yeah,
he
but that's
doesn't
why the
hold
elves-
that view. He's trying to argue.
Well, he
in
certainly
favour of
doesn't hold that view because he appears to have a halfling child.
Well, that's Kathy's theory, and I think.
I mean, come on.
Well, no, sorry. I think we both agreed straight away.
Yeah.
That
But the
boy's
kids-
ears are hidden, right, by his haircut.
But he must know. I'm sorry. Now, in fairness, maybe there's no mirrors in Middle Earth, but like,
Well, you and
fine,
I,
he's got a page boy haircut, but like, I feel like you'd know if you'd elf ears. So my theory is he's got elf blood. He's half elf.
and
but-
his ears aren't showing yet.
His ears aren't showing.
My theory is that
No, he'll never have pointy ears, but he's got elf blood. That's my theory.
my theory
Because his blood
is
activated that Sauron thing, which I think would have had to be activated by elves.
Yeah, well, that's clearly his dad. I mean, they had all these throwaway lines about,
Yeah.
oh, your dad ran off when you were a boy, and you're like,
And then the
yeah,
mom
alright.
and him are like, the mom and the elf are like, kind of implied they've hooked up before and like are blatantly in love with each other, and like he's lurking around her back door.
Here's what I think. I think
I think they had one night. They're so po-faced. They had one night of indiscretion.
I think they are chaste.
Yeah.
I think it was.
I mean,
a
they don't
slip-up.
even kiss goodbye. Like.
Yeah, they are probably clearly agreed with each other that it's too dangerous because there seems to be this.
And then there they are
animosity
lurking around
between
by
their
the
races.
well for the whole
But
village
they can't
to see.
keep away. But I thought those two actors really expressed
brilliant,
that really
yeah.
well. That longing.
And also when
and that
but I
raw
thought
sexual chemistry.
when she was a bit obvious though, when he first walks into the pub, she just gets up and walks straight out. I was like, could you be
Yeah.
more transparent?
Because she wanted him to come out to the well so she could give him her little seeds.
Oh, they're so cute.
I
But
mean, I thought, yeah, they're both
and
very
he's
attractive
so
people.
I mean, yes, he's
Yeah.
so beautiful, and also he's so brave that I loved when that's when the end of the first episode got really good for me because I was like, oh shit, like when they went off and like
To hunt down
that
from the
evil
nearby
thing.
town,
Yeah, that was the end of the first episode, wasn't it? And then
Yeah.
I love when how brave he is that he just got like straight down in those tunnels.
Yeah.
So I thought that was class.
Another
and the
brilliant
other elves
scene
have left.
underwater.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was when it got a bit horror-ish.
Exactly. There was a few horror, like that was an incredible horror scene, and then the other scene, the horror scene was, which kind of is in tandem with that. And I liked this overlapping storytelling. We see a town decimated with tunnels, and everyone's disappeared.
Yeah,
then we
class.
have the boy, and then it cuts to the boy, inspecting what he thinks is mice, and that little glimpse of the orc face was just horrifying.
And then that boy somehow, and I think I missed this bit, he had like Sauron's brand or something.
Yeah, he found. Did you not remember that scene with he was with one of the other humans, and he said, "Come here, come to the barn. I'll show you this thing."
Oh,
the
so he's
boy
had it. Oh, I do remember that. So
has been hiding.
So he's
it.
had it for ages.
Yeah, we don't know how long or where he got it.
Ah,
So he's got that sword. Yeah,
and then he. For some reason, when he's holding it, it takes his blood, and that's why I'm like, I think it needs to be elf blood, and I think he's an elf. Yeah, and it starts burning fire, right? And then the mom's like, "Are you coming?" And he's like, "Sure, mom." Just throws it in the bag, walks off, and like, "Isn't it a flame?"
Nothing to worry about. But flames don't seem to work. Like we've seen flames,
evil flame,
like disappear, come back. Also, we've seen people hold their hands through flames.
And then Dave pointed out, because we saw them all walking across the hill at that point, that this is now doing what Lord of the Rings does best, which is just people walking.
Yeah. Yes. Walking.
Yeah, keep walking. Though, how did the elves get to the dwarf land so quickly? We never saw that.
They walked, I presume. You mean the two elves?
Yeah.
There was, well, it cut to the map, and then there was a few dots. And I guess they just walked.
That would have been 2 Hobbit movies we're over and done with in that.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's pretty much the main stuff in Arendir. I think.
When is someone going to cut that boy's hair, and is he going to realise he's an elf?
Well, you and I are both agreed he's a fucking elf. He's a half elf, and he's your man's son. However, what we don't agree on is whether or not he is aware of his own heritage.
He doesn't know he's an elf because he said, "What's one of them doing here?" about his dad.
I think he does know he's got the ears. He's deliberately hiding them, and he hates the elves and himself. He's blaming. He hates half of himself. That's what I think. I don't think he knows that's his dad.
But then why would he say, why is one of them doing that, being there, instead of being like, why is your man back again?
Maybe he's trying to keep up appearances.
Like, has he never seen your man constantly lurking around his house before?
Yeah, true. Yeah, but they've been keeping each other. They've been keeping away
or
from each other.
Or maybe he doesn't come see the villagers that often. Maybe he hasn't been down in like 15 years.
Oh, because
since she was exactly
then
pregnant.
He's not doing his job very well, is he? No, I disagree with that. I get the sense he's there all the time based on his little routine.
I think he's really good at his job as well. Like the fact that, like, when he went into the bar, he stopped all that shit going down. He's like the best sentry, basically. And even though all the other elves are leaving and they're packing up, he like goes down those horrific tunnels and like sees what's what. Now he's maybe driven by love as well. All the elves seem to know he's got the girlfriend as well, and they're like, "Come on, mate."
Yeah, it's like the worst kept secret.
They're just like rolling their eyes.
I think the humans know as well.
Yeah, I think
because I think she's been treated as a pariah.
No, I don't think so. She's the local healer.
Yeah, but I think she's been there all eyeing her up a bit.
Maybe. I don't know. As soon as your man's cow was sick, he brought it straight down to her. And then the cow milked.
Oh, that was gross.
Ooze.
Yeah.
That was so gross.
Yeah. And then we got that fantastic horror scene in the house with her and her son hiding in the cupboard.
That was amazing.
That was proper scary, I thought. And that's, J.A.B.O.
And then she was, by the way, we were like, "Oh, this is scary." And then it turned into the cutest fight scene ever. She was vicious.
God, yeah, she was
But I love
awesome.
how they fought together, her and the son. I thought that was really good.
But it was so well choreographed as well, and the way he got the rope and then jumped down.
Yeah, that was
and then also the way it cut to the head going down. And
then she brought the head to the pub. And what did she say?
She's badass.
She said something, "We go to the elf tower by noon," or something, by sundown, or everyone's dead.
Because they wouldn't go with her previously.
Yeah, that was amazing. Also, like, fair play to her, she can actually kill an orc. So, like, you'd want her on your team.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and particularly her son with his evil magic branded thing, and I guess the son's going to turn evil now because it will have infected him or whatever.
It's certainly going to do him no good.
Yeah. I think he's on a downward.
He's going to start whispering stuff at him. Probably.
Certainly, the least of his problems would be a load of mice under his floorboards.
Right. Let's talk about the last sort of plot that we're going to follow. And that's the Harfoots. So they are.
Because we were like, "Oh my god, Hobbiton looks so different." Did they not want to film in New Zealand? We were spiraling, and then we realized they're not hobbits.
They did film in New Zealand.
Oh, did they? But they didn't use the set we were at, the Hobbiton set.
No, because
this is like old timey hobbits.
Yeah, this is thousands of years before. I don't know any. Again, sorry everyone, I don't know.
But also, they're talking about a
existed
migration, so maybe because Hobbiton is like their permanent home, right? Whereas these ones seem to migrate. So maybe the end of this.
But they're
series,
actually a different race. I guess it could be somewhat like, you know,
they're like-
humans to
they'll evolve.
Neanderthals.
Yeah, I'd say that's what it is.
Yeah, they will evolve into
And I'd say
hobbits,
the
yeah.
end of the series, like series 4 or something, they'll settle in Hobbiton because they seem to be kind of transient.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah. Yeah, so they're a nomadic sort of species. And also, unlike the Hobbit, who spoke in sort of West Country sort of English accents, they have Irish accents. The
Don't you mean
Harfoots, for some reason.
Irish accents?
They're very Irish. And
Some of them are actually Irish, though, I'd say, but they're just hamming it up.
yeah, perhaps. Lenny Henry is not Irish, but he's
He did a good
actually
accent.
doing a
Yeah,
good
I thought he
accent.
did a good
I gotta
accent.
say, so I don't mind people
I
doing.
didn't mind any of the accents. I actually thought they were all good. I just was surprised. I was so surprised to hear them.
I think I gotta say it wasn't as cringy and offensive as I was expecting.
No,
it to
I
be,
thought it was
because
fine.
as soon as you hear that kind of thing, as soon as any Irish
Our back
person
gets up, yeah.
hears this sort of thing, it's just very. It tends to be very sort of.
It's Darby O'Brien,
leprechaun-y.
whatever, and the little
Yeah,
people. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I honestly thought their accents were fine, and I like slightly exaggerated, which I don't mind. So I was thrilled by that anyway. And then I enjoyed all of this plot. It was interesting because we're so used to the hobbits being like the central characters, and they're very much not at all in this show yet, which is interesting.
However, Nori, who's our sort of
Yeah, she's
Hobbit
cool,
or
yeah.
Harfoot protagonist, she does feel quite.
They seem taller than hobbits as well, by the way. When they were next to the man, I thought they were taller than hobbits, the girls.
Oh, maybe so. Maybe they shrink over the thousands of the years.
I don't know.
I felt like she's very like analogous to Frodo and Bilbo in that she's got this spirit of adventure and wants to.
Maybe she's
explore
like Bilbo's granny
and-
or something.
Well, it'd be great.
But they live a long time as well, though, don't they?
He had his 11th, wasn't it? His 111th, 111th
Yeah, that's a long time.
birthday, but he was extraordinarily long-lived because of the ring.
Oh, right. I forgot about the
Right,
ring, yeah.
yeah.
I keep forgetting about that out there.
Because then as soon as he didn't have the ring, he became fucking ancient, remember? So they lived a little bit longer than humans, but not
Right.
certainly not as long as. So we meet, Nori and her friend Poppy. I think they're really lovely and charming. I think the two
Yeah.
actors were very good.
And they kind of established fairly early on that Nori's like a little bit bored and pushing beyond her boundaries.
Yeah. Very much like a Frodo or a Bilbo. So,
Yeah.
and I think you need that. And then we also meet her parents, who aren't really major characters yet. Her father sort of twists his ankle.
No, her father doesn't twist his ankle. That thing
looks seriously bad.
voodoo dolled him.
Huh? What?
That thing did a voodoo doll thing with a stick and snapped the dad's ankle. That thing did dark magic on the dad.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah.
The stranger guy.
The stranger who, my prediction is Sauron.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome prediction, and if it's not true, it's a missed opportunity.
Well, it has to be. He's either Sauron or Gandalf.
Say it again.
Isn't he? And Gandalf is an evil
I
and
don't
voodoo
think
dolling
it's
people's
Gandalf. I don't
ankles.
think Gandalf is that old.
I also just don't think Gandalf's evil like your man is. And so
No.
I think something's after happening Sauron, and he was in that cave and something happened to him. And now two things are happening, where for some reason he's been shot out of the sky into Hobbiton, and B, that kid stuck its blood in that thing.
Yeah,
and now
things
he's
are-
going to come back again.
Well, I think your theory holds up. I think that the fact that we've been told that there has been no orcs sighted in years, that the darkness has been gone, Sauron has been, like, she's been hunting him for decades.
Darkness is afoot.
He's disappeared, and now
and that worm thing in the sea.
now the blackness is coming back in, the fruit that the High King sees. It's
cow's
all emerging
milk.
now. It's no coincidence that this man appears now. So he's clearly connected to this evil in some way. I think it's very, very likely he is Sauron.
Did
I
we
think
ever
that would
see
be an awesome
Sauron in
twist.
the other movies? I can't remember.
No, he's this off-screen threat that you never see. He's just you see the
He was
eye
a
of
tower,
Sauron.
I remember
Yeah,
that.
Yeah. No, he wasn't a tower. His eye is the only thing we experience. We never actually see him as a person. But you see him in the beginning of the movie, in the flashback, which is what this whole universe is set in.
Who played him in that?
Well, nobody. He's wearing this because we see him briefly in the beginning of this. He's wearing a big black helmet and mask. And
So
looks
this is
very
definitely him then, that guy.
threatening. Yeah, we've never seen him as a person. No.
Maybe what they're going to do, what you've just given out about, where they're going to make him like a complex, sympathetic character.
Well, perhaps, yeah,
But he's already done loads of damage. If it was him, he's already done 1,000 years of damage on this planet, so we can't be too sympathetic.
yeah.
He doesn't seem to know who he is, though. I think he's amnesia.
But don't forget.
So I think he's amnesia, and he'll be really nice, and then he'll realise who he is, and he'll go evil.
But I think even Sauron is all right. There's a few examples of, as much as I said it's black and white, evil characters in the Lord of the Rings who are evil tend to have been corrupted by evil. That doesn't mean they were always
so
evil.
Evil's like
if you think
this
of
kind of thing that corrupts a person or a
exactly,
elf or
it's
whatever.
a notion. It doesn't mean that somebody can be pure evil, but they may not have always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Gollum and Sméagol, or as is referenced in this, I forget Sauron's boss, Morgoth, whatever he's called.
He has a boss.
The High King, not the High King, Elrond's new friend who he really respects, who I can't remember the name of, the older poet guy who wants to build the forge. He says that when Morgoth got X MacGuffin, he stared at the gem's beauty for so long until he realized his own vanity and evil. Do you know, it was like he clearly is somebody who slipped into, evil, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that. Surely it could be the same for Sauron. It's people who are corrupted by evil. And that was what the whole power of the ring was in Lord of the Rings. It seduces you. So it's
and
like
that's
evil
like,
is
like
something
Narcissus
you can
who
fall
was staring
into.
at his own reflection in the water until he fell in.
Yeah.
It's all that kind of thing.
I think is Sauron, and this is his origin story. Sauron begins. I can't say it like you do.
But is it an origin?
Say Sauron begins.
Sauron. But is it an origin story if he was evil 1,000 years ago?
Well,
It now has amnesia.
Re-origin, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or he's just he's clearly a wizard, right?
Yeah.
Of sorts, right?
So
That's
maybe
very
he's
clear.
just this season's Gandalf because they need a wizard to help them on their journey.
Perhaps. A couple of things on this before we finish. That end of episode 1 with him coming down like a comet, and
That was class.
that aerial shot of him lying naked in that with the flames around him is quite an impressive visual.
Yeah, the end of the episode was so good of episode 1.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And
I
then
think they were right to release them both together though, because I think you really needed to watch 2 to get
2
fully
had a
into
bit
it.
more action.
Yeah.
And I thought the thing he did with the fireflies was really awesome. And anytime he turned, he was scary. Like anytime he turned and sort of started at the 2 girls.
I don't think it was that scary because I was like, these girls are central characters. He's not going to hurt them.
No, but he's an interesting character because he seems like he does need help, and I like that Nori's giving him this help, and it shows us her character. But there's something threatening about.
Well, it'd be
him.
interesting to see. So he clearly doesn't perceive them as a threat, knows they helped him or whatever. It'd be interesting to see like someone else come in. He might just fucking kill them. But he definitely voodooed her dad's ankle, so that's really weird, and I don't know why he did that.
Oh, I totally missed that. So yeah,
Well, that's my theory anyway.
Oh wow, okay.
Well, they happened at the exact same time. He was doing some crazy
I thought
shit.
they were just happening. They were just cut that way. But you
Why would you cut it that way?
I don't know. I don't know. You're right. Maybe
Yeah.
he influenced it.
But also they said Lenny Henry and his wife were saying to her family that like was it like that they were due to leave in like 3 days, but like he can't put any weight. They were like you couldn't even put a feather on that ankle or whatever.
So they'll be. Oh, so
he
he's
can't
keeping
migrate
them there deliberately.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think so.
That's interesting.
They can't migrate.
We also forgot to say Lenny Henry's character, who's called he's a trail finder. So he's like he looks to the skies.
Yeah, he's like their oracle.
But he's been mapping stars and looking at signs and prophecies. But we, very pointedly, the fireflies that stranger mapped out was a constellation. So I feel like Lenny Henry is going to be able to decipher.
I can't
where
wait.
he wants
Now
to
that
go.
you're saying it, I can't wait for them all to join together.
I think it's going to be super exciting.
Yeah.
Like, remember in Game of Thrones how exciting it was when our characters finally reunited after such.
In fairness to them, though,
though,
they kept some of them
Like
apart
this-
for 4 seasons. Like,
yes, but like.
I'd be interested to see though how there's so much scope in this show, and I know it's based on some Tolkien stuff that neither of us have read, but it's really fun for us because we don't know where it's going. So, like, I don't know if like the accumulation of this series 1 out of however many they're making is going to be them making the rings, or is it like something completely different way earlier than that, and like the making of the rings is like 4 seasons in. Like, I've no idea where it's going. Whereas Game of Thrones, you always knew it had to end up with like winter coming and all that shit.
That's why I think this show's quite exciting as it is a prequel nominally, but I feel like it's covering such a space that was only covered in a prologue in those trilogies.
It is mad that it's out at the same time as House of Dragon, though, which is the same thing, which is like a series based on like a really small kind of prequel factual.
Yeah, you're right.
I'd say neither is happy
they're
that the
able
other's
to-
out at the same time.
Oh, surely. But actually, I think they both kind of are different. They're quite different, and
Yeah.
they're sitting quite nice next to each other.
I like them together. It's just 2 hours a week is a lot for like busy people to commit to.
That's the thing. Not everyone is going to watch both these shows.
Yeah.
So they're cannibalizing each other.
Though to be fair, we say that, but of the type of people like us who watch both shows, we fucking hoover this stuff up.
Well, that's
so
true. Yeah. Well, I'm glad. What a time to be alive that we're watching like 2 massive high fantasy productions. Right.
I also think House of the
TV.
Dragon will always have more of a zeitgeist because of the Game of Thrones and the fact that it's on every, Sunday night and stuff.
I
think
know,
if
don't
you were
forget
to,
about the cultural impact that Lord of the Rings
I'm
has
not.
had.
I'm talking about the TV zeitgeist. I'm saying a lot of people might store up the Game of Thrones ones and watch them all together at the end. Whereas, a lot of people might store the
Rings of
Power and watch them at the end because I don't think week to week there'll be as much conversation. Where Game of Thrones you kind of have to watch every week, or you do get hit with spoilers and like people are talking about it online and stuff. So I think.
Okay, here's a question.
If you have to watch one week to week, you'd keep watching.
We've watched
House of
2
Dragons.
episodes of each. You've just asked the question. You think House of Dragons is the one you'd pick?
I'd still watch them both in the end.
No, but if you had to pick one
to watch
hands down.
weekly.
No, you'd say you can only watch what you've only got time to watch one.
Like forever. Can never go backsies.
I mean, no, sure, fine. You can wait till the end. Yeah, which one can't you wait for?
The House of the Dragon, because you
Right.
get spoiled. I don't think you get spoiled on.
But just whatever. Which one are you more excited for? Which one are you enjoying more? Which one are you more excited to watch?
I like them both
If
equally.
you only had one,
I like them both equally.
because I think.
But I think I'd get spoiled on House
I
of the
think
Dragon.
I'd actually go with Rings of Power, and I'm really enjoying House of the Dragon after the second episode. But I think I'm really enjoying the vibe of the show. Epic, high fantasy, just like good and evil.
Yeah, I like them
swords and
equally.
sorcery.
I just think you could save a few of these up and then have a lovely time watching them together. Like
I mean,
we've
I'd
just
happily
done.
binge
Yeah,
this.
like I wouldn't actually binge House of the Dragon. I don't think I'd fancy a few episodes of that back to back.
No, it'd be a bit grim.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
also so refreshing to have a show without any hint of incest in it. Right?
Not yet.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. I know this was a little bit of a departure, but let us know what you thought of the Rings of Power, please. We are at the Cinemile on all the socials. We are the Cinemile at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd like to email us, and we clearly like to talk about this because this has been a long episode, and we will continue to talk about this with you if you would like to, so please do contact us anyway.
Most importantly though, stay tuned for our 250th episode where we're going to see the movie of the year and the moment. Michael Flatley's Blackbird. We're thrilled. We can't wait to go see it.
Very excited.
Stars have aligned for it to line up for our 250th. It's almost like he saw the Cinemile's semi-regular release schedule and said, I know what I can do with that.
It's a pop culture event for the ages. I just can't believe we live in a world where, we get a new Lord of the Rings and a new Michael Flatley
I know,
film
yeah.
in the same week.
It's mad.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, thanks everyone for listening and talk to you soon.
Bye.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What do you do when no one else is watching? What do you do that makes you happy for no reason at all? What are you obsessed with? I'm Leslie Arfin, and I'm a writer, but I'm also a dancer, a painter, a vapor, a dollhouse enthusiast, and basically just an overall hobbyist. My podcast, Filling the Void, is all about what other people are fanatically into. We talk about hobbies, even if you don't have one.
Listen to Filling the Void on Tuesdays on the Arios Network and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.